Mike Malatesta started his first business in 1992, 7 months after being fired from a company he had dreamed he might lead one day. Over the next 22 years, he helped run, lead, and grow that startup, selling it for more money than he could have imagined. He's the creator of the How Did It Happen podcast and an active early stage investor. His mission is to help as many entrepreneurs as he can to create companies that improve people's lives and maybe the world. He's the best-selling author of Ownership, and he's with us today. Hi, Mike. Welcome to the podcast.
Pat, thanks so much for having me on. I've been looking forward to this ever since we met. So
yeah. Me too. I think that you have so much great information to share with entrepreneurs. I'm excited. So let's just jump right into it. So tell us a little bit about what you do now and why you do it.
Well, sure. So I've been an entrepreneur since I was 26 years old. So for about 30 years.
Okay.
And during that time, I've started and sold 2 companies in the waste management industry. And along the way, I've had a lot of experience in growing a business, in struggling with a business, in making acquisitions and having good ones, having bad ones, and becoming a leader, figuring out how to shift as I, got into different experiences. And now I just sold the second business at the end of last year, near the end of last year, 2021. And now I am looking for, I'm an investor in over 100 private companies. So it's not like I'm looking for the next thing for me, but I'm looking for the next thing to be energized by. And so I have 3 things that I'm doing right now that I think are going to lead to that, Pat. The first is my book, which is called Ownership: How Getting Selfish Got Me Unstuck. That came out at the end of November 2021. And that's been it was quite an interesting process to write it. And it's been an amazing process to get to talk about it with so many people and reflect on it myself as people are talking to me about it. It's like things I didn't think about or things that they're seeing that never occurred to me.
Yeah.
So I've got that. And then I've got my podcast, which is called How Did It Happen. I've got about 250 episodes of that done. I've been doing that for 3 years. And that's something that I'm going to continue to do because it's such a great way to satisfy my own curiosity and to share just amazing stories of success with people that, my mission there is to inspire, activate, and maximize the greatness in everybody who listens to it. And I work really hard to try to accomplish that. And the third thing I'm doing now is my coaching business, which is called Ownership Coaching. That's sort of developed out of the book. And I help high-level entrepreneurs and leaders imagine the futures they want, and most of all, make them happen.
Wow. That sounds like you're really busy.
There's a few things there. Yeah, there's a few things there. But
yeah.
Like I said, all energy.
So, did you know when you started the podcast that you would eventually be exiting the second company and selling it?
No. In fact, I started the podcast a little bit before I got into that business. So at the time that I started the podcast, I had no idea that second business opportunity was going to present itself. And it was just something that I started because it was so completely different than anything I'd ever done. I was always been a very private person, one who really preferred the backstage. And but when I started listening to podcasts, which was maybe a year before that, so maybe I was late to the game there, but I just started thinking, well, this is a really interesting format. And I think there's some creativity in me that I could help explore by trying this. And so I just had no idea what I was doing and just thought I would give it a try. And now I'm still doing it. So I had at the beginning, I didn't know if I would like it. I didn't know if I would be good at it. And I didn't know if I would last doing it, but so far so good.
Yeah. That's really excellent because so many, I don't know what the percent is, but so many people who start podcasts or start writing blogs or whatever it is that requires a regular commitment end up stopping because they're not getting whatever momentum they wanted, or it's too much of a problem for them or whatever. But yeah.
And it's easy to stop because no one's, unless you have a business around it, that's your business. It's easy to stop because things get in the way, and then you miss an episode, and then all of a sudden you miss 2 and then 5 and then 10. And then you're like, wow, should I even start it again?
Yeah.
But you're right. I think only a fifth of them or less actually continue past, 10 episodes or so.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really
so by that standard, I'm doing really well.
Excellent. Yeah. So let's talk about your book, Owner Shift. So tell me a little bit about the book and who would benefit most from reading it.
Yeah. So thanks for the question. It's a great question because when I wrote the book, the process of writing a book like this, a nonfiction book, the people that I work with say, you want to create an avatar, an avatar of your ideal reader. And so my avatar for the book was an entrepreneur who has had some success. They have a business that's working, but they're feeling sort of lost, stuck, and uncertain about what to do next. So it's sort of like, that what got you here won't get you there sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of us, include, at least in my experience, a lot of us find ourselves 2, 5, 10 years into a business, and you're sort of wondering, how did I get into this thing in the first place? And where is it going? And what am I doing? Do I enjoy what I'm doing anymore? And so that was my avatar. But interestingly, as people who've read the book and either written a review on Amazon or sent me an email or something, that they say, there's wider appeal to this book than just entrepreneurs. This is not how to be a great entrepreneur book. This is really about a life experience, a journey, and making shifts at the appropriate times or when necessary in order for you to continue to make the progress that you want to make, whether it's as an entrepreneur or just in life in general.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. So you talk about 4 different shifts. Is that correct?
Well, I break the entrepreneurial journey up into 4 parts.
Okay.
In each of those parts, you could have, a lot of shifts, or you could have minimal shifts. I guess it all depends on your own experience. But I break it up into 4 parts. I call it the dream stage, the grind stage, the break stage, and the breakthrough stage.
Okay.
And I did that because in my experience, working myself as an entrepreneur, buying a lot of entrepreneur-led companies, and just surrounding myself with a bunch of entrepreneurs, that seems like a fairly typical journey. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the journeys end in the grind or the break stage, though. They don't continue through the breakthrough stage. And that's what I'm trying to encourage everyone reading this book, and entrepreneurs in particular, to, it's okay and maybe even natural to get, just ground down by everything and maybe feel like you are stuck. I call it the valley of uncertainty in the book. So it's natural to do that, but you don't have to stay there. But sometimes you can't figure out on your own what to do. So everything that you've done has gotten you there. So the only thing you can do is more of it, Pat. And if you do more of it, you're probably going to stay there.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. So can you give us one little tip or something for each of those stages? Yeah. Or one way to recognize where we are in what stage, and maybe one way to move on to the next stage then?
Sure. Thank you. So the dream stage is the best stage, right?
Of course. That's where you're all excited and energized.
Yeah, that's the best stage. That's where, you are so sure that what you are going to do is going to be the greatest thing ever, that, you're willing to do anything to get there. And your confidence level is very, very high. So in the dream stage, it doesn't matter what's coming at you, whether it's a problem, an opportunity, an employee issue, financing issue, whatever. You take everything as okay, this is validation that, this is going to be great. So I love this. And then at some point, and it's different for everybody, but I'd say for most, it comes faster than you'd think. The grind of doing everything that needs to be done in order to have a successful business begins to outstrip the sort of mental picture you had of the dream. So in the dream, this was just all going to work perfectly. And even though you didn't know all the details, it didn't matter. Right? In the grind stage, the details start to matter, right? Because all of these things that are necessary to run a business, start to expose themselves. And at the very beginning, you're like, nice, I can handle it. I can we beat that or whatever. And then pretty soon you're like, shoot.
Not again.
Not again. Right. Not again. When you start saying to yourself, not again, I'm glad you said that, Pat, you know that you are in the grind stage. And when you're in the grind stage, all the things that you loved about the idea and the dream, you're doing less and less of those things typically. Mm-hmm. And you're doing more and more of these things that you never thought of, but that need to be done. And you're the only person to do them, let's say. So your business is moving forward, but you're getting further and further away from your dream. Mm-hmm. And the break stage is when the grind has just essentially taken over. There's no more dream anymore. Mm-hmm. There is only the prospect of more pain. Your confidence is really, really low. Even if it looks strong on the outside, inside your confidence tends to get really, really low. Your prospect of your future is very dull. Meaning not boring, just unclear. You just don't have an idea of what it is. And so naturally, you begin to think that the only future I have is more of the past, right? And more of what I'm feeling right now. And I don't like that. And then, of course, the breakthrough stage is when you figure out a way to design. You really get back to figuring out. It's different than dream. It's not what do I dream, it's what do I want. Mm-hmm. And when you start to figure out what you really want, you can start to build a plan to get there and break through multiple times, as you get there. So you're always making progress forward. The one thing I like to tell people, or at least I like to plant with them, is the thing about the break stage is that while it feels horrible, there's a real silver lining to getting there. And that silver lining is that you designed a system inside of your business that was perfectly constructed to break you. Right?
Because we're so clever.
Yeah. And it was intentional too. I will say it was intentional. You just didn't have an intentionality to it. Maybe not the same intentionality. So you've designed this system, and that's kind of a bummer when you have the self-awareness of that, but it's also very cathartic, and it's the catalyst to breakthrough, because you say to yourself, well, if I designed a system so perfectly to put me here, then surely I can design a system that's equally as perfectly to get me where I really want to be once I figure that out. So that's a sort of a quick synopsis of the stages and a little how it feels to be in each and how you can get out of it.
Yeah. And so the why that you started your business, how does that fit into your system?
Yeah, that's a great question, because that's very, very popular now, is to have a why and start with why.
Yeah.
I think if you can do that, that's fantastic. I didn't do that when I got started. I didn't have a why. I had a need. The need was to, one, have a job, have a way to make income, and the other was now I've made these commitments to these people, investors in the bank and whatever, I have to perform. And I mean, I knew what we were going to do, so I knew the what, but the why was that took a long time. I do think that starting with why or knowing your why is really smart. But boy, sometimes it's just, I think it's hard to genuinely know your why until you start making progress down the road.
That makes me feel so good because everybody's always saying, well, what's your why? Oh, well, I started because I needed something to do that made money.
Right. Yeah.
That's why I started.
Which, by the way, to me, that's a perfectly fine why. Now, that's not going to satisfy, maybe, that's not what Simon Sinek's looking for you to say, but that's perfect. I think it's perfectly fine. And later, you have to get started before you can figure things out completely.
Right. And then once you're doing it, then you find joy in something and you're like, oh, that's why I do it, because I really enjoy helping these people be successful or whatever it might be. But it wasn't the why for starting.
I'm glad you said that, because for me in my journey, the thing that really helped me get feel good about what I was doing and understand why I was doing it was what you would get, feedback you would get from clients and customers and people on our team. Yeah. They would actually help me at least understand the why, because like I said, I was doing the what and I was getting satisfaction from doing the what. But when people start to tell you, like when people that are paying you money are also telling you why they are paying you money, it starts to really get clear in your head, because sometimes you think that what you're doing is just what everyone's doing. And it takes some other perspective to help you really break through that and see the real value proposition that you're making for your clients, customers, for the world, however you want to end up defining that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So tell us about what you're doing to promote your book.
Oh, well, I'm doing a lot of podcasts. I've been on a lot of podcasts like this, and I'm trying to, I've had a good amount of articles written about me and written about the book, not about me, in Medium, Entrepreneur Magazine, Inc., Forbes, your magazine. There's so I'm doing that, and I'm also just talking to anybody who is interested in the book or talking to me about their experience with the book. I just really want to make I'm trying to get the word out, because I want people to even if they don't choose to read the whole book, I want them to be curious about the book, and I want them to be curious about how they could benefit from some of the things that I have experienced in my life, and that and some of the things I've learned to help me get further than I thought I could get.
Yeah. And do you plan on doing some speaking engagements, or do you do that as part of your promotion?
I do. I haven't done any large presentations about the book, but I am definitely open to it. I'm doing a LinkedIn Live with a fellow that I had on my podcast who thought that it'd be interesting to talk about some of the lessons from the book with his community. So I'm certainly open to that. And yeah, that sounds great. So what's one piece of advice that you would have for someone who is in the grind stage? Well, no, they're in the break stage. They're in the break stage and they're just wondering, like, they haven't come to that realization yet because they didn't read your book, that what got them there, that they created this, that they can now create a different way. Right. Like, what's your biggest advice for them if they haven't had that realization yet? And they're like talking about, I don't know if I even want to continue anymore. Yeah. I think the best thing is, if you haven't, the best thing is to get help. And if and a lot of people don't want to get help. I never wanted to get help. I thought getting help was cheating. No, so I think as a very first step, I would get outside of my business and I would get around some other entrepreneurs, even if it's in an informal way, and just start, if you're comfortable talking about how you're feeling, start talking about how you're feeling, because just getting it out there and even if they're not going to tell you, it's not, I don't expect people to get into something and someone to say, this is exactly what you need to do. And you walk away and you're like, yay. But, start talking about it, because so much of that in particular, is what a lot of us want to keep it inside.
Yeah, because we don't want to be vulnerable. You have to be kind of vulnerable if you say to people like, what I'm doing every day is not bringing me joy anymore. And I feel like I'm just being beaten down.
Right, because that's not the face that sells, right?
Yeah.
I have it all figured out. Follow me and hashtag this. But that would be the first thing I would consider. And if that, as a first step, you're comfortable with it, then I would take it further and I would seek the help of a coach or an organization like the Strategic Coach, for example, is one I mentioned in the book, as is Vistage. YPO or EO, getting into some of those organizations where they can where they can really not only put you around more people that are similarly situated and probably struggling with the same things you are, but get you tools that you wouldn't or probably couldn't come up with on your own, but they're out there.
I worked for a tech company in the late 90s, it was a software accounting budgeting solution. And the guy that founded it realized he wanted to sell it and he wanted to make it big, and sell it for big, which he did. But he realized in that process that he had gotten so big that he wasn't the right person to be leading it to that step. Do you think that that's something that happens quite a bit?
It happens, sure. Yeah, I mean, how often do you see, the same person leading a company that was a startup at the time they have, an IPO or get bigger than $10 million, even, let's say. It's rare the people that can continue to lead a business appropriately, I think, as it grows. There are many examples out there, but I do think it's rare. So ultimately, I think that comes down to, what do you want? Really understanding what you want, and then figuring out whether you have the skill set and the rest of what goes into being that, which isn't just skill set. Yeah. And if you do, great. And if you don't, that's great too, because there is someone out there that you can partner with or sell to or whatever. There are options. Yeah. You're not obligated to run your business forever, even if you don't, feel you're qualified to do it anymore. Yeah. I think a lot of people maybe have the opposite issue of the fellow that you just used as an example, where it's clear to everyone around them that they're not the right person to run it except for them. That happens too.
Yeah. Too. I know. Yeah. So who's your perfect client for your coaching business?
Yeah. So I am focused on companies that are between 10 and 250 million in sales. They're profitable, or at least they're not, turnaround situations, because those probably aren't. They require a different, I wouldn't say skill set than I have, but definitely different approach. And I don't want to be on that approach. I want to be on the, moving forward approach. Someone who's either, the entrepreneur or the owner or an executive who has the autonomy to make change, because some businesses you may want to make change, but you may not have the autonomy to make change. Yeah. And the other criteria I have is that you're, a kind person. So I only want to work with kind people. So people who are really committed to creating a future that is, bigger and different than their past. I'm a good person to help you make that future happen.
Yeah. Excellent. And so do you work with teams too within the organization? So maybe you're coaching the leader and then they've got team members?
I haven't yet, Pat. I'm not opposed to it, but again, if you have to be able, I have to be sure that you have the autonomy, and in addition to the want, you have the autonomy to make change. Because if you don't, it's a great exercise, but it's probably not going to deliver the results that you're looking for.
Yeah. Yes. So switching gears, what do you do for fun?
Well, I happen to live on a lake, so I do. I'm not much of a water person, but I love watching the water, Pat. So just living here and being around the water all the time is really fun for me. I enjoy boxing.
Okay.
I box with a coach twice a week. So, who knows? Maybe I'll be a champion someday, but that's a joke, everybody.
Yeah. Then you can coach all those other boxers.
Yeah. So I like moving. I like boxing. I like, exercising. I like reading. Of course, I do enjoy writing. Outside of the book, I write, and I'll be writing more books as well. And I like hanging out with a couple of couples and just sitting back and just talking about things, and and I really love learning.
Yeah, that's great to have that love of learning, no matter what stage you're in your life. It's good to constantly be learning.
Yeah.
Do you live on an inland lake or on Lake Michigan?
Yeah, an inland lake.
Yeah, nice.
Lake Michigan's great. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's a huge lake. It's more like an ocean. To look at it, it looks more like an ocean.
Yeah.
The lake we live on is much smaller, but and much easier to get along with.
Yeah, no kidding.
Can be a tough partner.
I know. We've been on the coast of Lake Michigan plenty of times when the wind was blowing so hard. And yeah. So one thing I always ask everybody who's on the Sort of Success podcast with me is, what do you think are 3 traits that people need to have in order to really make those steps in your book and end up at the breakthrough? What are 3 traits?
Well, I think the top trait for anybody is curiosity. So if you are curious about things, you are, generally speaking, going to get so much further in life or in business or in relationships or whatever than someone who is not. We're all born with tremendous curiosity. And then by the time we're 3 years old or so, 4 years old, it can start to decline because you're being told no all the time, right? And so if you get told no long enough, then all of a sudden you don't have any curiosity. So I think curiosity is really, really important. I think belief is amazingly important. You can, there's so many things that you can overcome if you believe that you can. And I don't mean like silly belief. I mean belief that you're willing to work at.
Mm-hmm.
It's just such a strong muscle that I think is a huge advantage. And I think the third thing is self-awareness. We've talked a lot about, different stages and shifts, and there's a lot of power in being aware of who you are, how other people see you, what you're good at, what you're not good at, what you want. And that's been a tough one for me, I know. And I think I still sort of wonder about it sometimes as I make, different breakthroughs in my own journey. But I think self-awareness is super important. You can fool a lot of people, but you can't fool yourself. So why waste the time? Be okay with knowing who you are, and be okay with not knowing everything, because you don't have to. That's not your job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are terrific.
Thank you.
So tell people how they can get in touch with you and get your book, learn more about your coaching, etc.
Sure. The best place to find out about all of those things is at my website, which is my name, Mike Malatesta, MALATESTA.com. Podcast is there, coaching is there, book is there, about me is there. So anything you want to know about me is right there on the website, and you can contact me through the website as well if you feel like doing that.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much. It was really a delight talking to you. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks so much for having me on, Pat. It's been great.
Okay, thanks. All right, bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Soar to Success podcast. For more insights into growing your business or improving your quality of life, visit soartosuccessmagazine.com and subscribe to the Soar to Success podcast on iTunes.